Hey guys, Mike here with EBR, and this is the Euphree Stellar Falcon Mid-Step. Now, Euphree is a brand that you may not have heard of before, and in my opinion does not get talked about enough in the e-bike market. But I think you'll see today, after we go over some of the numbers, performance, and specs of the Stellar Falcon here, that this brand is starting to punch above their weight class. So stick around and let's take a closer look at the Euphree Stellar Falcon Mid-Step. Now, this is a Class 3 commuter or city style e-bike, but it's also got some versatility to do a little bit of anything you want. Kind of like an SUV bike, if you ask me. Maybe you could even call it a fat tire bike with these 2.8-inch tires. But nonetheless, this will get to 28 miles an hour on pedal assist or throttle. Now, this bike has a current MSRP of $2,199, and it's currently got a max payload of 350 pounds. Now, on a good note, this is UL 2849 certified. And this bike we received for testing weighed in at 74.9 pounds. We removed the battery. That battery weighs around 9.5 pounds. And without the battery, it's around 66-ish pounds. Now, this bike comes in two configurations on the website. You can choose the mid-step like we have here that has this crossbar, or you can do the step-through version, which has the much lower standover height on it. Now, you get 4 frame color options regardless of which one you choose. This one is the crimson red, but there's also black cherry, a galaxy blue, and a black onyx. And if you notice, all of these frame colors, they do a really good job with their paint. It's kind of got like a new car paint to it. It has like kind of a metallic, just a very nice high gloss looking colors. These are one of those bikes that when you see them, well, almost everyone kind of says initially, whoa, these look really nice. They just have a very nice look to them. Now, this bike has some geometry numbers to discuss. So rear hub to front hub wheelbase, we have 46 inches. The standover height on this is 23 inches. The seat post can go from 23 inches up to 29.5 inches. And the reach up top is around 16.25 inches. Now, this mid-step we have here fits riders on the taller side. So this would be from 5'5" up to 6'4". And if you go with the step-through version with the lower standover height, that fits riders from 5'2" up to 6'1". Now, the motor on this is made by Bafang, and it's a rear gear hubbed motor. This motor is nominally rated at 750 watts, but it has the ability to peak at up to 1200 watts. And this is rated to output 90 Newton meters of torque. Now, to put that to the test, I ride these bikes all over town during the weeks that I have them for testing, and I even went hunting for some very steep hills just to kind of put that 90 Newton meters and 1200 peaking watts to the test, and it always handled everything very confidently. It can accelerate from a stop very quickly, but even more so, and even more importantly, when you get to hills, that power doesn't die down. It's still very capable going uphill and feels very confident even on some steep local hills that we have. So if you're in a hilly area, this should definitely be on your radar as a bike that could potentially tackle those hills for you. Now, one of the cooler things about this motor setup is the fact that you can pick between a cadence or a torque sensor. Oftentimes when you buy an e-bike, you have the choice of getting an e-bike with a cadence sensor or with a torque sensor. But in this case, the bike is equipped with both, and you get to pick which one you use on your ride, and it's a simple few buttons in the display. You can do at any point in your ride, and you can switch between the cadence and the torque and kind of feel what works best for you, which is always nice to see, and it's always nice to just have some more options. So kudos to Euphree for giving us both a cadence and a torque sensor in their Stellar Falcon. Now, on this motor, you have 4 driving modes or 4 pedal assist modes, and those are Eco, Tour, Sport, and Turbo. Now, all 4 of those have kind of gradually increased levels of power, but just know that at each of these, you can still go all the way up to 28 miles an hour. It's just gonna regulate how fast you get there. So that's another nice feature for controlling that speed and choosing between fast, punchy rides or more slow and relaxed rides. And then also remember that the faster you go, the shorter your range is, and the more relaxed rides you do, the longer your range is. So all those will come into play. Now, powering this motor is the 48 volt 15 amp hour battery, and that gives you 720 watt hours of power for your rides, and it's controlled with Euphree's custom controller. That's a 25 amp controller, 48 volt rated. Now, they say for range on this battery you can get up to 70 miles. Now, we tested this and we got 68 miles, and there's so many variables in range testing that I'm going to go ahead and call it good. 68 miles when they advertise 70 is a very solid result, and I was really happy with those range numbers from a single charge. Now, the lifespan on this battery is advertised as having 850 charge cycles, And it has LG cells, which are also a very nice reputable company to have in your battery here. Now, this battery is also UL 2849 certified, which is always nice to see. And then I know some of you want to know about the battery removal and locking, so let's kind of talk about that now. So the bike itself comes with a key that I can keep on my keyring with my regular keys or just on the bike, but it allows me to secure the battery in place and remove the battery. So if you need to take it inside or just remove it for security reasons, that's something you can do. So you'll put the key in here, you'll turn it, there's a little lever here that will drop it, and then you can easily remove it. This is about a 9-pound battery, and you can put it back inside. And pull the key out and you're good to go, which is a nice feature to have. So that wraps up the motor and battery here on the Stellar Falcon. When it comes to components, they kitted the Euphree Stellar Falcon with an 8-speed drivetrain. Now, making up that 8-speed drivetrain here, you have a Shimano Altus rear derailleur mated to an 11-32 rear cassette. Up front, you have a 50-tooth chainring with 170mm aluminum crank arms, and the bike comes with plastic Pedigo flat pedals that have reflective strips on them for visibility. Now, the brakes on this bike are Tektro hydraulic disc brakes, and they have 2 piston calipers with 180mm rotors, and those rotors have a thickness of 1.8mm. During all of my rides this week, it never had any issue stopping. It always stopped confidently and no complaints in the braking department. Now, the drivetrain itself has always worked well, and I think the range is very good for most types of riding. I never felt like I was ghost pedaling and never felt undergeared or overgeared, and including up to 28 miles an hour, I still had resistance to pedal, which is always a nice thing. And even sometimes I crept over that 29, even into 30 miles an hour with this gear range. So kudos on the gear range as well. Now, moving up to the saddle here, we have a nice wide ergonomic saddle that has some spring cushion to it. And then you also have this optional suspension seat post. Now, this seat post with having suspension on it has been super comfortable, and then when you pair that up with the front fork that we'll talk about in just a second, it's a really nice setup. The saddle is very comfortable, and this seat post can be adjusted from about 23 inches to 29.5, so about 6.5 inches of adjustability, and it's a 27.2mm thick or diameter seat post. Now up front you have a SR Suntour front suspension fork, and one super cool thing about this is a air fork. So you have nice compression, you have positive and negative air chambers, you have preload, rebound, and lockout here on the top of the crown, which is always a nice feature. So another thing we don't see often in these direct-to-consumer e-bikes generally is an air fork. So I really loved having that on here, and I think if you ride one of these, you'll see the difference between a coil fork and an air fork is almost night and day. It's a very different feeling. So well done on the front fork. Now up here in the cockpit, so starting up top, we have a really nice overall clean look. If you notice, they've run all the wires together into the stem here and the headset, and then down through the fork, or internally routed things to the back. So the whole overall cable management and wiring is nice and clean and internalized, and I always like that look. Now, both ends of the bar are going to have Velo ergonomic black rubber grips, and the handlebar itself is 740mm or roughly 29 inches wide with a bit of a slight rise here, and it's an aluminum alloy handlebar. Now the stem here is a Zoom 90-degree adjustable stem, and this will give you the ability to kind of pick between straight up or all the way leveled out, that 90 degrees to work with, so you can kind of dial in a comfort fit that works best for you. Now over on each side you have the Tektro hydraulic disc brakes, brake levers. On right here in between the grip and the display, you have the throttle, which is a push throttle. Then you have your color display here on the left, and everything is very easy to manage with one thumb press. Everything's kind of ergonomically intuitive. There's no kind of reaching or looking for things. Things tend to be right where you'd want them to be, which is a nice feature of this bike. In the middle, you have your LED headlight, and you can turn that on by simply holding the plus button. And I've currently got it in strobe mode, but you can also choose to have that in a standard, just visible on mode. But right now it's in strobe mode, and you can turn that off just by holding the plus sign again. On the right, you've got a bell and your Shimano index shifters. So overall, the cockpit is very clean, very nicely laid out. And we should talk about some of the free accessories that come with this bike when you buy it. So currently the MSRP is $2,199. And I was looking at their website doing research, and it had quite a few free accessories they're throwing in. One is they're giving you a thermal protection storage bag to charge your battery in, which is really nice. These are fire resistant bags. Now, this is UL 2849 certified, which is already a safe e-bike battery by UL standards, but having that extra layer of added protection, should you choose to store this in your house or charge it in your house, getting that thermal fireproof bag is really awesome. And it also has the option to come with a rear view mirror, some free gloves, and a bike lock. All those come free right now, standard with the bike. So kind of a nice, just free accessory package that comes with it. Now, should you want to add things like front racks, they also have those, or even pannier bags down the side, they have those as well. But just for those free accessories, that's what the bike's going to come with. And so that wraps up the cockpit. Let's go ahead and take a look at the display and see what kind of things you can control in the bike's display. All right, so this is the basic home screen. The screen you'll see when the bike is just in the on configuration. So it's currently in eco mode here on the left, but as you go up in PAS, you'll see it's got Tour, Sport, and Turbo, each being progressively faster and punchier in how it delivers power. We'll bring that back down to eco. In the middle, you've got your current speed in miles per hour. Down below is your odometer, trip meter, and average speed, 15.4 miles. And on the right, the numerical percentage for the battery level left in the bike. Now, if you want to go into the settings menu, you can just hold the plus up and down and you'll get into the settings mode. Here you have display settings, which we'll go into because that's where the meat and potatoes of most of it is. But then you've got basic things here like information about the bike, firmware, software, the language. You can choose your language. Themes are just color themes. You can choose different color configurations. You can change the password, you can access Euphree Connect, and you can do a factory reset. Now, if you go into display setting, you have some more deeper settings. And in here, you can change units between imperial or metric, or miles per hour and kilometers per hour. You can go and change how quickly or long it takes the bike to shut off after you last used it. I think it'll allow you between 1 and 9 minutes. I've currently got it around 5 minutes. Here you can reset the trip meter. Here you can adjust the brightness of the display. We've currently got it in the brightest level right now, and it's nice and bright outside and it looks good. You can change the Bluetooth signal level to the strength of the Bluetooth signal level. You've got, this says steel number, but what this represents is how many magnets are being counted for the cadence sensor, and you can choose between 1 and 12. So it's got the ability to use a 12 cadence sensor magnets, or as little as 1. The default is 6, and you can change that and play with it to see what you like when you ride. Now, riding style is going to be Eco, Tour, and Sport, where you can go in and you can adjust the timing and sensitivity, as well as like the power and how it's delivered. So you really have a lot of options to dial in each riding mode and get it to a sensitivity and power level that works best for your comfort level of riding. Some people will want a punchier ride and faster ride, and some people will want more of a relaxed ride. And that's just a nice feature about being able to fine tune these levels. So we'll go back to here. And then here you can turn the throttle on or off. So right now the throttle's on, but you can turn that off if you have someone younger riding it or you don't want to use the throttle. You can always remove that altogether. And then drive mode is where you're going to choose between cadence and torque sensor by simply just clicking the button, and then you're good to go. Light mode is going to let you pick between a standard light or a flash like we showed you. And then you're back to the home screen and you can exit, and that is the display. All right, guys, talking about numbers and specs is all fun and good, but what really matters is getting out on the bike and riding it. It's my favorite part. So let's take this on a ride, and I'll kind of talk about how the bike rides and feels and some of the features, and we'll play with those, and then we'll kind of talk to our mechanic and wrap this up. All right, guys, we're out here on the Euphree Stellar Falcon Mid-Step, and the riding position on here, because of this kind of flat bar here, it's kind of a hybrid between an upright with a little bit of a forward lean to it, not quite as like aggressive as like a mountain bike, but it's got a little bit of a forward lean, more of a hybrid upright position, but you still have a nice big clear view in front of you, and you're definitely not bent over or hunched over the handlebars here. Plus with this 90 degree adjustable zoom stem, you can kind of make it more aggressive if you want to, or bring it up and make it taller and more upright. So you got a lot of flexibility there. Now, I've currently got it in eco mode. Out of the 4 modes, it's eco, tour, sport, and turbo. And currently going about 12 miles an hour. It's in torque sensor mode right now, but I can always switch to cadence if I want to. see what kind of speeds we get on each level. So I'm going about 12 in eco. We bump it up. Now there is a slight motor noise. It's not super loud, but I can definitely hear it. Not overbearing and not surging, but it's there. Now in tour, I'm going about 15 to 16, 15 and a half. Let's go to sport. And then we start feeling that pick up a bit. And here I'm up to 19, even on this slight incline. And then if I go to turbo, change gears, we are quickly up past, 29. So I've actually crept over 30 on this, so keep that in mind. And that's even with the speed set to a 28. I think we should actually have the max speed set at 30 miles an hour, which would make sense. But it's just something to know, you can get going that fast on this bike. So if you have kids who ride it or you feel like throttle controlling it, just go into the app and make those adjustments. Or not the app, but the display. So the brakes on here are these Tektro E350 hydraulic disc brakes with 180 millimeter rotors and 2-piston calipers. Let's get going up to speed here and give them a quick brake check. So I'll get to about 20 and hit the brakes. So a little bit of a skid. I didn't fishtail, which was nice, but nice confident braking, even in a really hard stop like that. Oh, see a squirrel. The suspension on this bike and the overall comfort factor kind of can't be overlooked on this. Sure, it's a good looking bike and it's got lots of cool features, but this is a bike that not only can kind of go anywhere, do a little bit of anything within reason, but it's also super, super comfortable. Something if you were commuting a lot on or doing longer rides, this is one of those bikes you feel like you could ride all day. I love the front fork, that Suntour X132 air suspension fork. It's really nice to see that. And just have control over things like rebound and preload. And then it's just kind of complemented by the Suntour suspension seat post. It all just works together, plus the geometry, for a really, really comfortable ride. And when you think about things like headlights, taillights, rear rack, fenders, it's also shining as a commuter option, a city bike, or just a weekend on your local trails bike. It kind of does well in any environment. That's one of the appeals to it for me, kind of the overall appeal. But anyway, as you can see, it's a nice smooth bike. The tires roll really well. And with the suspension and the tires, you have a bike that can kind of get you wherever you want to go. And I kind of like that feature about it. So let's go talk to Ben, our mechanic, get his thoughts, and then I'll finish this up. All right, guys, welcome back. This is the time where we speak to our resident in-house mechanic, Ben, and he's going to kind of take us through some features of the bike and talk about some pros and cons. Real quick, thank you to Feedback Sports for always supplying us with their Pro HD aluminum rack. It's lightweight, super solid and durable, especially with a 75-pound bike in here. And they have a full lineup of tools as well. So if you like to tinker on your bike, I'll put a link down in the description so you can check them out. But Ben, I'm going to get out of your shot here, but just kind of we'll go through the things you like about the Euphree Stellar Falcon.
All right, thanks, Mike. Hey, there's a lot to like about this. I'll start from the front, move my way to the back. First things first, I really like this fork. The fork is an air sprung fork, which means it's infinitely adjustable. Just have a shock pump. You can pump it up for any rider weight or style of preferred riding. The through bolt on the front fork and axle, what this means to a rider is it's going to be really stiff on the front end. You can point and shoot this thing, go as fast as you want, put a load on it if you want, but it's got a lot of stiffness and a lot of confidence-inspiring feels on the front end. Along with that, we have a tapered steer tube, meaning it's 1.5 inches diameter at the bottom, 1 1/8 inches at the top. This is very common to see in the mountain bike industry. It's great to see it on e-bikes. A very robust and super adjustable stem is also nice to see. The whole front end just feels really solid. That's one thing that I love about this. I like the battery placement. It does keep it kind of low to the ground, so low center of gravity. It's got a nice cover, so you don't have to worry about it getting bothered or messed up. I really like the cable management on this front end as well. Very nice, super smooth, not a lot of loose hanging cables anywhere. It just looks great. Easy to work on as well. It's kind of a picky thing for me, but I do like the kickstand placement on the back, on the chainstay here. So if you're like us and you have to back the bike up into a parking spot, that just means as you're backing it up, the pedals don't run into the kickstand. It's a little thing, but it's the little things, you know? I'm a tire guy, so these Schwalbe tires, they are awesome. I've been a big fan of Schwalbe. What that means to a rider is they've got a great rubber durometer, a good rubber compound, and they're just really robust. A reflective stripe around it also means greater safety if you're out at dusk or at night riding around with cars around. Another big thing that I like on this one is the suspension seat post. It's a little different than some that you'll see. It's a linkage style, meaning these two pieces work parallel with each other, and it's got an oil piston. So when you compress this, the oil will stiffen up and become more solid. It's just a really robust, awesome feeling seat post when you've got something like this out on the road. Feels great.
All right, nice. And what kind of things would you improve on the Stellar Falcon?
That's a great question, Mike. One thing that I would recommend that these guys consider is just lightening up the wheels first and foremost. They've got a very thick 12 gauge spoke. There's pros and cons with that. The pro is that it's a very solid wheel. It's a great feeling wheel. It's going to last a long time. You're not going to break spokes, but on the other side of the coin, it does tend to be a little heavy. You could lighten the bike up by a couple pounds with just some thinner gauge spokes. So you could argue that, and you could put it on the rear wheel with this big hub motor back here. There's so much torque, you almost need a thicker spoke back here to have a good feel on the acceleration from the power in the motor. But at the same time, do you need spokes this big? I don't know. It would just be nice to lighten it up a little bit. As much as I love this bike, gosh, I sure wish they would have put aluminum pedals on it. These plastic pedals, like a lot of other plastic pedals, you can ride through them, meaning they just flex a lot and the bearings might kind of blow out if you're riding the bike a lot, which based on this bike, I'm led to believe that whoever buys this probably plans on riding a lot, so aluminum pedals would have been nice. I'm not a big fan of steel fenders. Again, with the weight, they're just heavier and they make more noise. Also with steel fenders, if you do dent or bend them, they stay dented and they stay bent. Plastic can just handle a little bit more impact. Other than that, just the classic thing that I like to always point out is I wish in the e-bike industry they would start using oversized bottom bracket spindles. This is what's referred to as a square taper spindle. Back when I started building bikes in 1992, it was the same type of bottom bracket. So a couple of decades later, I would just like to see a current technology in the bottom bracket spindles. Otherwise, that's all I've got.
Awesome, Ben. Hey, man, thanks again, once again, for stepping up and giving us your thoughts on the Euphree Stellar Falcon.
All right, thanks, Mike.
All right, guys, so let's wrap this up. Who is the Euphree Stellar Falcon for? Well, they use a term in bikes lately, and it's kind of a newer term, and they call things SUV bikes. But let's talk about what an SUV can do. It has versatility. It can do a little bit of everything. It's not a sedan. It's not an off-road truck. It's the vehicle that can do a little bit of everything, and I think that's where the Euphree Stellar Falcon really shines. This is a bike that you can take on a light trail and have no problem. You have the great air fork up front with, rebound and damping control. So it's just nice to see a bike that can do a little bit of everything, including commuting. You've got your headlights and tail lights. You've got your choice between a cadence or a torque sensor. This is just, when they talk about versatile e-bikes, this would be the kind of bike that comes to mind. A little bit of everything, perfect for the person who's not sure what they want, but they know they might dabble in a lot of things. This should be on a short list to check out as one of your options. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this review. If you haven't done so already, consider subscribing and liking this video. And until next time, I'll see you guys out on the trail.